and welcome to Startup Faceoff. We've got four great panelists here, entrepreneurs that run their own business, doing different things, have different opinions, and we got some very interesting topics tonight. So we might as well jump right into it and get some introductions underway. And we might as well start with you, Candace. How are you doing? And let people know who you are and what you do.
All right. My name is Candace Huntley, and I am the founding partner of Songbird Marketing Communications. So we work with small and medium-sized businesses to really help them to connect with their audiences in the best ways, using the right channels, making sure they've got a good foundation in place for their brand, and really just helping them to build great relationships that will build loyalty in the long term. We do a lot of different things like public relations. We do a lot of influencer marketing. We do social media, content generation, and strategy. And I do have to throw it out there. My partner in crime in life and in business, he's kind of like the realism and the strategy side of the business. And I like to say I'm the unicorns and rainbows creative side. So hopefully I can bring a little bit of that today. And I apologize ahead of time if I get too animated.
I think that will be just fine. And Daniela, why don't you tell us about you and Book and Brunch?
Sure, thanks. I'm Daniela Kellaway. I'm co-founder of Book and Brunch. So we are an online platform that allows anyone to organize, host, and attend book, food, and wellness experiences. So we help people organize best-in-class virtual experiences hinged around those three things. But prior to that, I spent about 20 years in public relations and had my own PR agency. So that's sort of my background. But I'm thrilled to be here with these other entrepreneurs, and thanks for having me tonight.
It's great, and I've got some. I got my question specifically. I'm gonna want all of your feedback because I need some help. Doug, can you tell us a little bit about you and airo.life?
Sure. Thanks, Craig. We're launching the Be-Free enabled devices. So essentially, people do not have to pay for their smartphones or data plans any longer. And what we've done here was just simply flip the script, and banking paying for the hardware, and then agencies actually paying for the monthly telecom. And we give brands the highest visibility in the world for quality content on our devices. So in a nutshell, that's how it works. And yeah, we're excited to go to market in the US this year and start shake things up. So yeah, we're definitely shaking up the ecosystem already.
And you won our startup pitch battle competition last night. How did you think that all went?
That went great. I mean, there was a lot of strong companies there. I mean, Reuven, and Award Pool, and a few of the other people. A lot of quality entrepreneurs in Canada and in this conversation tonight, and it's great to see thriving, especially during this pandemic. So happy to be a part of this conversation tonight.
Yeah, and one of the last times, I guess I've seen you since then, Daniela, but one of the most memorable times was when you won the 25K down at the CNE for the Emerging Innovators Pitch Competition. And have you seen any of the virtual ones? Because, I mean, I have the picture of you like almost weeping when you won, and I haven't seen that same thing in a virtual experience.
Well, that's one of the questions, right? That I want to cover, right? And that's the whole pivot that Book and Brunch did. We went from in real life. That was our entire pitch, was that we're going to help people in real life, and now we have to do it like this with the screen. It was 30,000 that I won, but yes,
Okay,
I
that's
did.
right.
Just small
I
minor
forgot.
purchase.
Yeah, that's two. It was you won the 5K earlier in the weekend, and then the 25K final. But yeah, that's the reason I was leading it threw it over to you, is you lead right into the question with that.
Yeah. So my question, and it's like really a question for everybody, because I want to know how people feel about it. But the entire world has shifted to virtual. We were a company that helped people connect in real life, face to face. And one of my arguments and key pitch points was like the human connection, touch, and seeing people and all of this. And now we've pivoted 100% to virtual, right? Of course, everyone has. And so my question is, in this new normal where every event that you go to, every event that you attend is now through the screen, what sets it apart? Like what makes you want to go to a specific online virtual event over say another one, and B, what are the ones that like either fall flat, or what, have you seen that's like amazing and this is a thing? So how do you differentiate and set yourself apart to give an incredible experience virtually, I guess? Question.
Who wants to jump in on that?
I can jump in. I've attended tons and tons of events virtually. It's so weird. Who knows if I'm wearing sweatpants right now or not? But we've also kind of done some, some master classes and things like that virtually. And I would say that the events that I've seen that have done the best right now have kind of tried to marry a little bit of tactile stuff along with the digital. So if you can actually manage to send product to somebody ahead of an event so that they can experience with you what you're doing. I've seen a lot of influencers kind of, campaigns that are using influencers in this way, and using is the wrong word, and campaigns that are working with influencers in this way where they're sending them things, and then there's a whole event and they get to walk through it, or it's something they get to enjoy during a presentation or whatever it is. So I think an event for a brand would do really well if it's a tactile experience that accompanies it. In terms of kind of the new normal for networking events and things like that, especially as entrepreneurs in small business, because so many of us rely on our village and our community, or whatever you want to say, your support bubble, whatever we want to call it now. You still have to find ways to connect with people. And I think that the events that I've been to that have been really, really successful have been the ones that have actually had people super engaged throughout. Now, I don't know if they maybe planted people to get the conversation going. And if that's what an organizer needs to do to actually get that excitement going, then that's what they should do. But I feel like the ones, and I have to say, Canadian Small Business Women has been doing some really great conference style events online that I find I'm just like blown away every time I present at them, because I'm like, how is there so much engagement in this chat right now? It's pretty exciting doing events like that and attending events like that, because it makes you want to be involved. The ones that have fallen flat, and I won't say who they are, but it's the ones that try to stack too much stuff inside an event, because you can only do so much in front of your computer screen. You do need to take a break, but also if you have to choose between 4 different speakers that are talking about similar topics, then I'm kind of like, maybe I don't really want to attend this event, because how am I supposed to choose? And then I feel like I'm going to be missing out, or I'm going to be popping in and out of different presentations at different times. So I feel like that's where people really fall short.
Thanks. So what I heard was like, keep it short, have an engaged audience, and send people stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be short. It just has to be streamlined, I think, is the way it needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I have sent boxes out at work. People love it when you think there's something that's participatory.
Absolutely.
And when you send people food, people love food and mail.
Food and booze, always a great time.
Well, anything you send physically breaks the barrier, right? Because now you're talking about something that's tactile, you can touch, you can feel, if you can taste it, even better. One of the things we did with TorontoStarts, we try and make it we used to have 3 speakers in a row or 4, and we'd make an hour and a half, 2 hour, 3 hour event, then a bunch of networking afterwards. But now we're doing basically one topic, one speaker, webinars, or, we try and keep it very tight where the presentations are 20 to 30 minutes, and then it's all interactive Q&A, and sometimes the presentations are Q&A and stuff. And that seems to work, but it's not really a merger of real life and offline experience. Doug, what has your experiences been around this?
I love virtual because it saves so much time. So it allows me to be way more efficient with my time. Travel was a major issue prior, so we can go through a lot more efficient meetings, get things done. Yeah, that human touch isn't there, but you can get some aspects of it. Yeah, and I love the points brought up, spot on. Yeah, the tactile, getting food set before, and engagement, because you'll find that a lot of these people have a lot going on, and if you don't keep them engaged, they're going to move to doing their work while they're on these presentations or so forth. So yeah, you got to pop questions like, hey, put a hand up. Make sure you do that every 2 minutes, or else you're losing people. So yeah, the great points brought up. I don't have too much more to add, but I like the virtual for a number of reasons, and environmental impacts, because for how many years I just said to myself, this is an archaic system of going around the world and meeting people, and is it really worth me jumping on a plane going 18 hours across the world to meet so and so when we could just jump on a virtual call? Are the analyzers planting trees? No, they're not. So yeah,
worth it. It is worth it. There's a huge difference, actually. And there's all kinds of stuff going on in the background right now as we're here on the screen that's distracting us. That's like, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Trust me, Doug, if you were in this room and you could smell me and see me and touch me, it'd be a different story altogether.
My toddler just burst into the office right now, so I'm on headphones so you guys couldn't hear her, but
So yeah, last night we had about 20 people in the chat room on Zoom and about 70 people on YouTube Live. But Doug was pitching to a couple of people. Some of you have been to our startup, our open mic, open pitch, open bar, startup drinks, open pitch, open bar. So I haven't done it in a year. So forgive me for where people would come and pitch and we have pizza and drink. It's not, you're right. It's not the same, because you get to meet everybody. You get to talk to everybody afterwards. You get to have that connection. And then when someone calls you or connects you on LinkedIn or whatever, messages you, you're like, oh yeah, John, sure, I'll take that call, where you wouldn't necessarily otherwise. But that doesn't necessarily mean, I'm not getting in a plane and flying across the world to do anything. I'm organizing local events in Toronto, trying to get local people. Yeah, some people drive, some people do this. There is an economic impact, but people need to be around people. So I'm trying to do it hyper locally so we don't have this impact. Right now we are, in lockdown mode where, if you go outside for too long, the cops will come by. But so you don't get to have this contact. So this is an interesting substitute, but it's not, it isn't the same. And how long till once things start opening up again, everyone says they're going to work from home and whatever, till people remember that you are at a disadvantage not being in the room.
Yeah. I might also add too that virtual adds a lot of barriers for people that have disabilities. Someone who can't hear, if there's a bad internet connection, then, or someone doesn't want to be on camera, so they decide to turn their camera off. How are they supposed to read body language or look at facial expressions or read lips? So, and most people are not using closed captioning. So it's a tough one.
I think it can go both ways. So someone can call you right after your pitch, and that happened the other night. And it depends on the approach. You could actually have thousands of people ready to watch your pitch or your presentation, whereas some rooms you only have 50 to 100. So it brings down the economies of scale cost per person to watch. But yeah, I agree. If you have a good conversation with someone, they always remember that, and that's lasting. And like, oh, that's what this person was super cool. They got what we were about, and there's some synergy with our project. So then, yeah, when you do call each other, like you brought up, you want to answer that and engage. So yeah, there's both sides. It's a 50-50, I feel. But yeah, great points again. Yeah.
I just think that consciously they're different, and trying to think they're the same is where you go wrong. And, if you see, you're right, Doug, you got to constantly engage. Last night during the pitch competition, I had 5 polls go in. I'm chatting on YouTube. I'm chatting here. I'm looking at the timer, watching you. I'm trying to, keep, because you have people in a room. Great. You're in my room. I have your attention. You can look at your phone or whatever, but you're coming back to me. You're at home. I kept those pitches to 5 minutes because I might let it longer in a reel because you're here, you're in the room, it's a captive audience as you were. But now you're at home. This is boring. They haven't moved on. My dog's bugging me. I've walked away from my thing and I'm gone. So I, as a person who runs an event, I have to keep those people engaged. And so it's tight, tight, tight. So it is different. And you have to figure out ways to interact better. How are you interacting, Danielle? What kind of ways are you making those experiences better?
Like the experiences that we put together?
Yeah.
It's always like really unique sort of pairings. So for instance, it'll be like a book about Italy, and then some, pasta will get sent to them, and then a chef will come on and tell them about it, and then we talk about the book. We did an event, food stuff goes over really, really well with one of the Canada's Top Chef contestants, and she has a famous brownie. So everybody was sent the brownie in advance. Then we talked about the brownie, and then we worked through a recipe together. We did a business book and brunch with the book Shoe Dog. Everybody was sent a journal, the book, and some like other office-y kind of supply stuff. And then we discussed it. We talked about Phil Knight, and then we masterminded with each other about each other's businesses. So it's like a combination of. So we do a few things. First, our events are small. We don't do like huge conferences or anything like that. So as you can see with the four of us here, this is a little bit more manageable and intimate. Like our events are usually 8 to 15 people, which is perfect for meeting people. There's always something extra special that happens, or some surprise that you get sent, or some, so we're finding ways to do it. But this is why I asked the question, because I want to know what other people are experiencing and where they find value. But it's interesting, like I've been scrolling and looking at all kinds of different virtual events, and there's some massive names out there that are just popping into like an Eventbrite or an Instagram Live or something, because I guess everyone's at home, so they have more time to do it. So that's the other piece, is you can access talent and people that you might not normally have been able to afford or access if you are organizing events, which is cool. But yeah, we have some cannabis events that are going to be coming up, wellness, meditation, different things, interesting combinations. And the cool thing about books is it can literally be anything, right? And the other cool thing is that we don't really control that piece. We have hosts and they decide, and our hosts are just as, they're completely unique in their offerings, right? What someone brings to the table. So I think, like, in a way, there's a lot of events platforms out there, but ours is quite niche and very community driven. So I think that that's one of our advantages. That's the kind of stuff we've been into.
Technology does give us a lot of advantages. It's just embracing them and figuring out how to take advantage. I've reached out to a couple of people recently who I didn't believe would give me the time of day historically, and they responded positively. So I'm expecting maybe some bigger names in some of our stuff coming up, just because maybe because they have more time, maybe because I gave the right pitch, maybe because everyone's locked in and tried different stuff new. Who knows? But I'll take it if I can get it. I think we should all be reaching out to those people if they're influencers, if they're whatnot, to help us or to spread the word or get them on our podcast or whatever to spread the news. Should we not be doing that, Candace?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's an interesting question that has come up working with influencers, because you see there's so many stories that have been negative that have come out. And I would say, especially in the past year with all of the political and social and economic unrest, but but not only that, just as kind of a genre of marketing, a type of marketing, it also has been like fraught with issues, because you have people that are trying to take advantage. So I guess the big question that I would have actually is, do you think it's worthwhile to work with influencers as part of your marketing strategy?
Well, I'm going to ask, okay, go ahead, Danielle, go ahead.
Jump in on that. Like, I've done a ton of work with influencers through my public relations agency. A lot of my friends, closest friends, are influencers, content creators. They like to call themselves rather than influencer, because it's kind of a gross word. I think 100% it's worthwhile. However, there's some caveats. You have to be extremely discerning about who that person is, influencer, content creator, whoever it may be. The same goes with anybody, but especially in this arena. And it's not all about numbers. It's actually about the fit, right? So that's the big one. I think if you have a company and you're not considering working with influencers, you're missing out huge. I have a ton of startups I've worked with, friends who they're like, yeah, it was this one influencer. We did this one thing with this one person, and then it was like this for our company from there. One. So is it worthwhile? Yes. Can you always afford it as a startup, or, no? Does it always make sense? No. It needs to really properly fit, and there's a process for that. And so I think there's a lot of problems is where the communications is not clean, where the fit it's a misfit, it doesn't work, and it just falls flat. So, and a lot of the numbers are fake. It's so problematic on so many levels. You really just have to do your homework and understand who is the person who can create the kind of content that is going to resonate with your people that you're trying to attract in, is my perspective on it. But just flat out saying it's not worthwhile or we're not going to explore it is a huge misstep, I think. And there's a ton of, I don't like this term, but there is a ton of micro influencers. And it's amazing the power of a few of micro influencers on particular campaigns and doing a push. So yeah, it's worthwhile is my answer. Short answer.
And Doug, as a startup who's about to launch, your phone and data plan and whatever into the US, what's your influencer marketing strategy? Have you approached it? Are you backing away from it? Is it going to be worth it for you? What's your plan there?
Yeah, we have 2 Excel spreadsheets full of micro influencers or content makers, if you will. And basically algorithms really changed from 2015 to 2017 on a lot of platforms. So two of the energy drink companies would get 20,000 click-throughs in 2015 to their audiences. 2 years later, the same image, if not better imagery, even video, was only getting 200. So you really had to back away from their pages and go with influencers, if you will. But yeah, agreed. The numbers used to be 1 to 3% engagement with comments or likes, but that's dramatically plummeted. So how do you identify these fake numbers? And that's where the metrics of tracking really come in. So yeah, we're very careful about who we select because basically we're about people and planet. That's the main prerogative here. And then I want a macro influencer, but again, it's an equity play. You look at Vitamin Water, what they did with 50 Cent. Again, not the particular person that we want to approach, but we have a few shortlisted people, and then DE&I. That's very important going ahead here, because my main prerogative is the environment, but no one is going to really concentrate on the environment until we come together more inclusively. It's easy to talk about diversity, but inclusiveness is actually doing it. I'm proud to say our organization is 50% women lead roles, 50% minority lead roles, and that just happened based on performance. We don't necessarily go down any caveats of we need this person because of this. It's based on their performance and how they perform in their past and what they're doing for us. So we're just lucky it went that way. And it's I wanted to bring up how we go forward in the future is proposing an idea. Canada used to be really progressive with a lot of things, but why not have our banks give special discounts for organizations that perform as a business, but take into account environmental stewardship, and then also take into account DE&I. So if you have a board, exec, C-suite that fit all this criteria, then you get an amazing loan or particular grants, more grants than other organizations. This fosters a whole growth of new businesses around that, and you actually get stronger. And then a great book I would recommend is Diane Primo and in Chicago, All, and it brings up a lot of great stats, facts. It should be mandatory reading for any C-suite or exec. Yeah. And it's a quick read. It's a 30-minute read. It's about 100 pages, but there's some great graphs in that. So it really reinforces the points of the book.
Yeah, could you put the name of that book in the chat room for everyone? That'd be great.
Will do.
I didn't understand that the word influencers was gross and a bad thing anymore. Like and now we're content creators. I don't understand the difference.
Not everybody.
Not everybody, but some of them, because influencer implies that, like, if I put a thing out, I'm influencing people, and it does, after a while it starts to feel weird and gross. Like, oh, I accept product in exchange for ads, or like I'm selling a piece of myself or something. And again, I only know this because I have friends who are influencers who are like, don't call me an influencer. I hate it. I'm a photographer. I make content. They really do make content for a living, right? So yeah, be mindful about it.
It's the same thing that we've kind of grown out of the term mommy blogger as well. That's not really widely used anymore, but 10, 15 years ago, that was the term to use. The word influencer wasn't even really around then. So it's just like, it's like being PC in the world of marketing.
Yeah, I just don't want to go and say to somebody I'm a micro influencer, and then they give me a disgusting look and walk away. I'm like, oh, what did I say?
Well, no, I mean, I don't think you're going to offend anybody, but it's just kind of one of those things where it opens up a conversation.
Content. Yeah. Because, it's just a label, right? I mean, I have a community here, a very niche. If you want to call it a micro influencer, you want to call it a content creator, because that's what I'm doing. I'm creating content that's educational and hopefully fun for some people and all that kind of stuff for my audience, So what do you call that?
I think you just call yourself like influencer to me, and in the industry, is like someone who is on a social media channel who is explicitly creating content for brokered partnerships, collaborations, sponsorships, like in a technical way. That's most of them. I mean, there are influencers who don't take any pay and they just go their own way and whatever, and then down the line they eventually all do. They start off by saying, I'm not going to pay, I take payment, I'm just going to put out this beautiful content or write this poetry or whatever it is that's drawing people in, dance every day. But eventually they all do collaborations. So to me, you're not really an influencer in that sense. You are, but not in that definition of it. So I would say
I would say community leader.
Community leader, yeah. Community organizer.
And don't be afraid to reach out to people. I think is part of the key here. I think there's some do's and don'ts, and I'm going to give you one example that my business partner Emily O'Brien from Comeback Snacks did. So I don't know if you know the story. So Emily was in jail, and she's rehabilitating, and she wrote a blog called "The Relatively Wealthy Inmate." And sent it to the author of The Relatively Wealthy Barber, the Dragon, what's his name? I can't remember his name. And he's over here in Hamilton. And his admin assistant got it and put it in front of him, said, you got to read this, And like 2 weeks later, she's on the phone with this guy. And now he's an advisor and a member of the advisor of a team, just from that blog post and that letter. So don't be afraid to reach out to people. Like, that's just an unconventional way of building a little buzz and then hopefully getting in front of somebody that'll do it. But you guys do you have any tips for reaching out, in a way that is appropriate to an influencer to get them to at least pay attention to you?
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest mistakes that people make actually is that they focus too much on a transaction rather than building a relationship. So I think that when you have to remember that they're a content creator, an influencer, but first they're a human. And you have to remember that anytime that you're reaching out, it should be about creating dialogue, building a relationship. you need to take the time to foster that relationship before you reach out. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to reach out to this person, and then the next day you send an email. It should be, I really like this person and what they stand for. They were a good fit for our brand. And then you start interacting with them and you start building a relationship over time. And then you come up to them and you say, I've been watching you for a while. We've been interacting a little bit. How would you feel about this? So I think that's the one piece that people often forget.
I also think a lot of people approach it like in a way, it is what you said, transactional, but they already know what they would like that influencer to do for them. And that's absolutely the wrong approach, because when you start working with them, they're artists, many of them in their own rights, like they feel really territorial about the kind of content they put out, how they put it out. So when you come and say, so I was thinking you could do this campaign, or we're doing this campaign, a lot of them it's very cringy for them. They're like, oh, that's awful. Like so giving as much free reign, I think, and asking in a way that's like, does this matter to you? This thing that we're doing, this is what we do. What do you think about it? Before you're like, I want to work with you. Find out if they want to work with you. Because the thing is, like, before it becomes about the money or whatever, it is so about building the relationship first. Huge. It's about doing some listening, so you actually get to know them a little bit. People just come right out of the gate and start making all kinds of weird asks, and like, I can't, I'm on in the social media world, I'm like a nobody, and I can't tell you, I get like 5 to 10 requests a day from brands that are just like, wear this swimsuit. Would you do this? Would you consider this? And I'm like, it's just spam to me. Like, you have no idea who I am. This is not a fit for me. Like, I get it. It happens to me, and I'm not an influencer. So I can't even imagine some of these people who have 1 million followers, the kinds of messages they get that are just useless and a huge waste of time. I will say this though, if an influencer has a big following, like if you are going after one of the big ones, near the top of your message, you do want to mention that it is a paid opportunity, because a lot of them, they won't even go past. Like, so I know we're giving like two sides of it, because we said, don't make it transactional. Now I'm saying, make it transactional, but only in certain cases when, like a lot of them joke about it. They're like, these people send me these notes and like, they know who I am and what I can bring to their brand, but yet they make no mention of pay. I don't have time like to waste. So if you're not offering me a paid collaboration or campaign, then you're wasting, it's a waste on both of our ends. So being, I guess, direct, authentic, straight when the ask does come, and offering as much as you can on the monetary side, because this is how they make their living. A lot of them, like the assumption that someone would do it for exposure or because they believe in your brand. It's like, no, not really. Though it does happen. It does happen. And I have some glorious stories, but not usually. It's very much pay to play now, especially. So that's
but again, it also comes down to the relationship too, because if they believe in your brand and you believe in them, and there's been that love connection, then they're more likely to be like, hey, yeah, I'll try the product out. I might not do, a full-blown campaign, but I'll post in stories. That's why I know earlier you had brought up that maybe, sometimes you don't have the budget. There is always the budget to start a relationship. There's always the budget. That's your strategy, is the relationship. And if you are a startup and you're looking to work with influencers, focus on that relationship. Maybe you're not going to be able to land a celebrity influencer, but those nano influencers, they have a lot of power, and they're oftentimes willing to support small businesses as they're getting started, because they know they've been there themselves and building their own communities. So I think that that's something that to remember as well. So
yeah, and I think that's the last sort of tip I would say, is if you are, for instance, building out a list of content creators, influencers you want to partner with, take a look at people who don't have huge followings. So like, one of my past clients and great friend now, Joanna, who owns the company Nixwear, they started working with an influencer called The Bird's Papaya, when she had less than 10,000 followers. Okay. Now she has 1.5 million followers. So at the time, it was very much what you're describing, Candace. The CEO just ran across her profile by chance, and she's like, oh my gosh, body positivity, like this woman is so aligned with what we do and what we put out. Let's reach out to her. And it was like super easy to reach out to her because she wasn't a big thing then. And then what they did, and this is brilliant as well, is the second that it was jiving, Nixwear as a brand invested in her. They supported her. They said, okay, what do you need to like quit your part-time job? Or what do you need? What do you need, you as a human? And she said, well, I kind of need this and this. And the company was like, okay, and made it happen. You do that to someone, no matter how big they get down the line, they're always going to want to work with you. Again, relationship. And also it's about giving as much as you can give, where you can give, even in the beginning, whether that's in like whatever form that takes, not just with influencers, but in PR and everything that you're negotiating. One of my like mottos is like give, and then maybe make the ask, maybe, if it makes sense. And then that way you get a better return.
Yeah, Birds for Pie is a great example. She's from my hometown, so I've sat down with Birds a few times. Great content. Yeah, body positivity, built a tremendous following. So that's a great crowd and audience for a lot of great brands out there. So perfect.
She did build a tremendous following, but the brand that believed in her helped her do that along the way. So that's what I'm saying. Find someone who's like that gem that you're like, it's not about their following or anything. It's just about this. I would want this person to create content for us regularly because they're so awesome, and then support them and help them grow, and they help you grow, and it like keeps going. So she's brilliant, of course, but I know that Nick's played a huge role in that growth for her. So
you mentioned something interesting too, is that, content, it's about content creation. And that's something that a lot of people forget about as well when they're reaching out to an influencer or a content creator, whatever you want to call them, is that it's not just about how many click-throughs you got. It's also sometimes just about those amazing images that were taken that, you can share as well with your followers, that people find about your product, those images, those videos, that witty caption, whatever it is. It's sometimes just about the content. And so that's also something to remember when you're putting a campaign together, as if you're doing influencer marketing, is that focus on that content. Don't just focus on the numbers.
Doug, you had dropped a comment on DE&I. Did you want to delve deeper into that, or did you want to introduce the other topic you had here?
Yeah, D&I, it's very important. I think we talked about that earlier, but yeah, it's basically about just bringing people together and then moving on to more pressing issues, which is the environment. There's talks about graphing DNA from dinosaurs to elephants and bringing dinosaurs back, but the reality is you can't have a dinosaur today because the CO2 levels in the atmosphere are so much different. So that brings a shocking, I guess, conversation. How much CO2 do you need in the atmosphere before it starts affecting us gravely? It's already proven in major cities with the increase of CO2 that neurological effects are happening heavily. Years have been taken off the lives of some major cities in India and China by about 20 years. So we do need to bring more people together, get that settled, and then concentrate on the environment, because as we're working on these other issues, the big looming elephant is that, how much more time does the human species actually have? And we need to quash these dirty energy factors. And how do you do that? It's nuclear. It's actually nuclear, and that's rolling into helium-3. And as crazy as it sounds, I used to be an active sports racer in my teens, and 35 broken bones, back injuries. So I was my acupuncturist the other day, because I wake up with pain every day, but as you get older, that's just the way it does. That's just the way it is. Any racer used to be fast. If I see one with a cane, I was like, that guy used to be a fast guy. Probably made some mistakes, but that's what you have to do to win championships, is push the limits of everything, your body, mind, etc. But coming back to helium-3, It's a clean isotope. Basically, it creates non-radioactive waste from nuclear power. So it's very exciting. But going back to the acupuncturist, she's just like, oh, what have you been reading lately? I'm like, oh, I've been reading about helium-3 heavily. I read it for Christmas night, Boxing Day, and just reached out to a few miners, got some costs just for fun. Anyway, so she's like, oh, Doug, I know that she's Brazilian. She's trained in China, based in Toronto. And she's like, Doug, I know about helium-3. And I was like, excuse me? And she's like, yeah, it's the moon. It's a moon element you find in rhinoceros tusks. I was like, holy smokes, Talia, not too many people know about helium-3, and you're telling me it's an ivory? And she's like, yeah, everyone knows this, that it's in my practice. And I was just like, holy smokes. But yeah, that's the sad part. It's in rhinoceros tusks, because we have a magnetic field around Earth, and it can't get to Earth. It's actually on the moon. There's 1.1 million tons of helium-3. But then there's policies on the moon. Not one country can take ownership of the moon, which is good. But it takes a long time to build these reactors. But that is a clean reactor that's not going to have any devastating effects with waste. And I would love to see Canadians or Canadian corporations to get more involved with the aspects of that project. Right now, they're trying to design TRL-6 robots. That's technology ready level 6 robots. They take a long time to build, but if you just get 2 conventional crews up there, it's very risky. But anyways, I'm going off. It'd be really cool to hear what you guys think about helium-3.
Is there a question? Oh, what we feel about helium-3. All right, there you go. I was waiting for a question. Jump on that one first.
So can I jump in here?
Yes.
Number 1, diversity and inclusion initiatives and that discussion is not something that should be secondary to this, but I'm just going to throw that out there. But seeing as how we're talking about helium-3, this is obviously not something that is my knowledge base, my wheelhouse. However, that being said, the fact that we're even discussing depleting a resource from another body, a celestial body, just goes to show that humans can't have anything nice. We're depleting all of our own resources here on Earth. We've created a problem, and now we're looking to go and change another body in our solar system forever. Because you know what? When will it stop? There's helium-3 there now, but what, are we just going to go and take all of it from the moon and change that ecosystem completely? And then we're going to go start farming and mining elsewhere? Like, where does it stop?
Hey, Craig, when was the last time you shopped? I shop about once a year for clothes. And
why do you ask?
Gattaca, there's a few films out there, and they say the lunacy of the planet, the words are "let's go shopping." That is the lunacy of the human species, because it's consumption.
Yeah.
And you just got to look at yourself. Minimalism. How do we make minimalism a thing? Well, it's about taxation, and it's slowly happening. You just got to start at the top. It starts with banks. It starts with the major wealthy, and you are seeing that come in. We're not talking about a guy or a woman who's worked, tremendous amount throughout her lifetime, 100-hour work weeks, and has made an accumulation of wealth of $2 million. It's in the billions. It's these people in the billions, and 1% tax on Jeff Bezos. That's $1.9 billion. That corrects a lot of major societal issues in the United States. Poverty, etc. So it's about minimalism, and it's about that. There's 3 fronts here: it's banking, education, and media. We have to start showing happy lifestyles, and that's usually community. It's some exercise. It's getting people together. And as much as I love the virtual, I know that you can't beat healthy relationships when you face-to-face relationships. So as much as the pandemic, I like efficiencies. I do know that value. Education, yeah, we've done a poor job throughout North America and the world. Canadians are 5th in a lot of major elements, such as math, science. We have amazing post-secondary taught population, but we have left people behind in North America, and that's based on systemic issues. So that goes back to the banking system. What can we do to elevate those communities, to give them a chance? Because it's like that race example. We all seen that video. You line up, okay, someone takes 10 steps forward because you're from this community, or you have a family that's together, or your education was paid for. Now look back, look who's still on the line. And that's what's gone on here with housing, education, because no one wants to teach in a community that's run down, that's violent. Only a few brave souls going in those areas to help out, and that doesn't help that community. But yeah, I'm all for DEI and not talking about it, but actually doing it and risking everything for it. And that's what my company stands for, not just talking about it, but having a team that's diverse. We do it. We don't talk about it. If you're going to talk about things, you make a solution. You don't bring up problems. If you're going to bring up a problem, you bring up a solution and do it. And that's us. So, yeah.
I'd like to just follow up on a couple of points. Candace, have you met a human being in your life? Yes, we will consume and use up resources of everything else around us to make our life better. It is what it is. That's like, yeah, of course. Hello.
There's the race to depleting. Obviously, like I said, it's not my knowledge base, but it's just sad.
They're going out and mining satellites and bringing them back. They're like satellites. I'm sorry, asteroids and whatnot. It's all happening. Like, we're gonna strip mine anything we can get our hands on. It's gonna happen. But as far as helium-3 goes, pardon?
Is there not helium-3 on Earth?
Not enough.
No, it's found in the most hottest places, and there might be a ton of it worldwide.
Saskatchewan. There's helium-3 in Saskatchewan. I read that in the news.
We'll have to look into that. We got to shift a lot of people from Alberta.
If we have it here, please let's not waste resources mining other out into the world. No, I say that's a hard no for me, especially now. Our resources should be going to as you say, Doug, to our education system, which is extremely broken and has been for years, to our health system, which is on the verge of collapse now, potentially, if things go awry. Like, we got way bigger issues right here, planet Earth, than trying to go to the moon.
Yeah.
Risky
yeah,
expedition.
I used to agree that we have to concentrate on Earth, but the resources that we need, I believe, are now on the moon. And I'm glad Elon's making a push towards there, because it's very important. I mean, you can mine for the solar elements we need, the silicon, all the elements that make a solar cell here. That's really taxing. The batteries are very taxing. I'm a big fan of hydrogen, just being able to switch all the current gas stations over to hydrogen. They're just going to switch the lines and the tanks. So why are we building all this new infrastructure for electric? That's a mistake, large mistake. But yeah, we consume. I agree with you guys there. You can't get away from consumption. Food. We do need a bed. We do need those essentials. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Because I know it seems like you're kind of like on that way, because we have to look at different resources. So if we start to mine resources from other planets, other things in space, and we already are, asteroids and such, and there's a race to the moon. Do you think then that it's going to help with equity, or is it going to hurt it and create that further divide between the haves and the have-nots then? Because I can tell you that the poorer communities probably are not going to benefit from that. They're going to have the leftovers.
Well,
I would assume.
Yeah, short term, if you want to say short term as in 2 years, 10 years, no. But you look at examples in Canada, $3 billion on a dam that they just discovered that will never work because the base isn't ever going to hold. So it is very capital intensive, helium-3. It's $25 billion to get that spaceship to the moon, two domes created over some water, get the appropriate infrastructure built, and then one load back is $140 billion. But yeah, how is that going to be dispersed? The right way to do it is the offering is to the world, because it's the moon. You don't own the world as a country or as a private entity, so you have to come back and say, everyone, I got helium-3. So you can have this much. You gonna buy it? Okay, well, we'll just put that back in the pool. But having that form of energy, that energy is what we need. When we search, when we're doing this live stream right now, that's taxing a server in a mountain and that energy is taxing. And are trees getting planted by Bezos? I don't know. I like to think so. Or Amazon. With a name like Amazon, you better be planting trees. So yeah, that's some of my thoughts there. But no, good points. We do have to concentrate on education because that's the fastest way you actually curb consumption. And that's the model that we have. The faster you can put free access to information throughout the world, that allows people to have education, increase their prosperity. And we all know what happens with mature markets. The birth rate in Canada is 1.6. Japan, it's 1.1. The Earth can only really maintain 2 billion people with a luxurious lifestyle. And luxurious is having a car, and it's having one car and having a roof over our heads. So I'm all for no tax with someone that lives beneath 0.8 acres of land and everything that piece of land can give you. But a car, you get taxed when you get a car. And if you live underneath 0.8 acres, you get no income tax because that creates a system of minimalism. Yeah.
Sounds good to me. I don't drive and I live in a very small place. But just to talk about helium-3, not going to happen for a number of reasons. One, take a look at TerraPower and what Bill Gates is doing. Where instead of using the 1% with U-235, they're using the 99% with U-238. So basically, the new model of next generation nuclear eats the waste from the old model. So all that old stuff that's sitting around, that's fuel for the new stuff, and it eats the old waste for itself. So this problem goes away. All the nuclear piles that we have will supply energy for us for a few hundred years, and then we just do some natural filtering of seawater to get the rest, and we're good to go. We can leave the moon stuff to power the moon, and the thorium base is there to generate our launch into space where we can strip mine everything.
And who knows, if we remain on lockdown for long enough, the Earth is just going to take back everything that humans took away anyway.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, Bill's working with a Canadian company for that reactor project, so that's great to see.
Yeah, and the deal fell through with China, and the U.S. is getting involved finally because, Bill's big speech on this a long time ago, for everyone to know. The problem with any of this stuff is it's the cost of money and the risk, right? The political shifts every 4 years. Is nuclear going to be as popular in a few years from now? It's not. And then when I invest to do this, my money disappears. So, this becomes an issue. But they're supposed to have 2 plants up and running, costing about $1 billion each by 2025. So hopefully, by the time, they're putting the shingles on the spaceship, we'll have some. So we'll see where that goes. But talking about, making sure we're inclusive and that we educate as many people as possible, that's our mission here at Toronto Starts is I help as many people as possible. Used to be my motto was I help who's ever in front of me. If you can get to my meetings, you get to my workshops, you can get to my events, I help you. Now, I help who's ever in front of me. It happens to be on the screen or whatnot. So we're a little bit more expanded. But I'll tell you, last night we ran Startup Pitch Battle, pitch competition that Doug won. And being a solo entrepreneur, I do everything. If I don't do anything, and if I don't do it, it doesn't happen in my organization. So I did what I normally do. I post the event online. I go create some graphics. I go to my stock photo site, looking around for videos. The thing's called Startup Pitch Battle. So I'm looking for boxing stuff. I pick a few. I find some sounds. I make some videos, put some graphics on. I think I'm doing a pretty good job. So I posted what looks like a really good video to promote our event on LinkedIn. I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I got somebody comment saying, "Oh, not the most inclusive ad you could have done, Toronto Starts." And I'm like, this is the worst possible reaction I wanted. I want to help as many people as I possible if you're moving stuff forward. So how, as a solo entrepreneur or a startup, no excuses aside, how do you keep this kind of thing in mind to make sure you are not excluding part of the people you're trying to bring in and attract? And, I would love any advice and feedback on that.
You can't win sometimes, Craig. You like you said, you're one person and you're doing a tremendous job and giving us all exposure. So thank you for that. And I look at it, if you showed a great cross of a guy going to a woman in the boxing ring, you're going to have the exact repercussions of the other side. So out of 100 images, I know what you went through because we actually sat down with our digital team. We had 100 images of boxers. 2 of them had a woman and a gentleman in the ring together. I was like, whoa. let's just put 2 guys and make it really black and to darken the image. But you can't find that content. You gotta monitor the right way, and someone can always spin something a different way. And the reality is, it's usually 2 gentlemen or 2 women boxing each other. So that's why we're going about doing this way. And I wouldn't want to see the other way. A lot of amazing boxing women can crush a lot of guys. I can say that. But yeah, we can go off on this one. That's for sure. I'll let Candace and Daniela take it from here.
Yeah. So we at Book and Brunch, we did a few things that helped on this front because we're also incredibly small. We're bootstrapped. We do a lot of it ourselves. And I know exactly what you're describing there, where you have to whip it together. We put together a volunteer diversity board. So everything that we put out gets seen by a variety of human beings of all shapes and sizes and colors and creeds that stepped forward and said, okay, we'll do this work for you. And a lot of times, because we do a lot of writing, in our case, it's a lot of writing, newsletters, and because we are a book loving community, so it's all about storytelling. And we have a really high open rate on our newsletter. It's like 78% or something like that. So everyone's reading it. And sometimes the language it happened because we got flagged. I'm trying to remember what it was. Now I can't remember. It'll come to me. But we wrote something in the newsletter, and our community was like, it was like one of those record scratch moments where a few people wrote us and said, this is not right. This is not inclusive. Why would you use that term? And it was in that moment that Z and I, my co-founder and sister, we were like, you know what? You can't expect that one person or 2 people or even a team of people are going to always be we should all have the awareness, but you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know about what is going to offend a certain group of people. So we put together a small little board. We put it out to our community. We're like, this is what we're looking for. Does anyone want to help us with this? We want to do a good job, and we can't sit here and think that we know how to do this good job because we're white, and that is our reality. So the world is a very different place for anyone who is not white, right? Visible minority. I mean, I'm an immigrant. English is my second language, and I have my own experiences as that, but the bottom line is I'm not a visible minority, and I don't know what it's like to be in their skin. And so yeah, we were very lucky that they agreed to do it, because some people wrote us back and said, oh, I get it, want us to do the work on your behalf. Nope. So, and then others were like, oh, great approach, Daniela. Thank you so much. I would love to have the opportunity to let you know when things are not actually quite politically correct or whatever the case may be. And so it's like a little checks and balances that we put in place. And it's been really helpful for us, because you, especially when you're working in a lean environment, you can't possibly always be thinking of every last angle, So that's just something that we did. I don't know.
I used to rely heavily on Megan and Andrea and Joseph, on our leadership team, and Ala when he was part of our group for that, and even Edis, because they're all part. I'd post in our Slack group, here's what, and they would, don't do this or do that, whatever. But now with COVID, it's just me, because we're not doing live events. They're all doing the other stuff. So my team we're a volunteer group. So I agree with you. I think that was there, and they would call me out. It was one of the things I've always asked them to. I'm not looking for people to say yes. I'm looking for people to tell me when I'm doing something wrong, so that we could get it right next time. Because that's only how we improve. Any advice, Candace?
Yeah, I think you actually said something really interesting about, someone telling you you've done it wrong so you can improve for next time. I think that So I have a couple of things that I wanted to point out about this. I think that one of the main things that small business owners, solo entrepreneurs, whoever it is, large corporations, I think that part of that process is how you respond when somebody calls you out. And I think there are a lot of brands that have done it very, very wrong in a very public way. You know, there are a lot of brands that have put Band-Aids on a situation, and really they're not tackling the root of the issue, which is usually systemic within an organization. When we're talking about an individual, you know, a solo entrepreneur who wears all the hats, I think that you have to look at it from a more introspective way, and that you have to approach it from, you know, what are my unconscious biases? And I think that as just, you know, go back to the talk of humans. I don't know why I'm feeling very much talking about humanity tonight. But you know, you have to actually, as a human being, continuously be asking whether you're doing something that's going to make somebody else feel uncomfortable, you know. And it doesn't mean that you're always in the wrong, but the fact that you are doing that work to actually ask those questions before you act, and it should start to become a subconscious thing where, you know, you say, am I reacting to somebody differently because they look differently than me? Am I putting out this picture because it looks like me, rather than is it representative of my community? You know, did I say this thing? Did I create this ad because I think that it resonates well with me as a white person? Or does it cut out? Does the language cut certain people out? You know, so I think that we are constantly having to ask ourselves those questions. And even myself, obviously, you know, my husband is Black, my daughter is biracial, and those are things I'm learning things. I've been with Trevor since forever, whatever year it was. I've been with Trevor for a long time, and there are still things that I am learning from him almost 10 years later, that, you know, things that I don't realize that he goes through, and there are things that I take for granted. And so as an individual person, I need to take what I learn and I need to adjust my approach in certain situations. And that goes for creating content for clients. That goes for creating content for Songbird. I constantly have to ask myself whether I am being inclusive, or whether I'm excluding certain people or making people feel uncomfortable with what I'm doing.
Yeah, let's say. Oh, can't hear you, Daniela.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to say, because thank you, Craig, for reminding me, and I want to share it because at the time I didn't know the word that triggered this whole dive into we need this committee was tribe. We were using tribe, the word tribe.
Sorry.
Yeah. And
I hate that word.
but a lot of people don't realize. And actually, at the pitch competition, one of the other a number of the other startups were Indigenous, and they approached us and straight to my face were like, "Just so you know, this is really quite offensive to use this." And I had used the word tribe for years in all kinds of different ways. So that was an interesting wake-up call, and kind of looking further and thinking more critically around the language that we were using across everything that we put out. So,
but it's even who you're working with. I know, you know, pre-COVID, when we were doing in-person events, I was doing work with a specific organization, and a lot of the speakers were Caucasian, and it was simply because those were the brands that were represented and they were asked to provide somebody. So it wasn't even like they were handpicking speakers for this event. And, you know, I was looking at working with content creators and influencers to try to help them to build buzz. And I sent an email to someone who I've spoken with a lot on Instagram, and she point blank said to me, you know, you're whitewashing this entire industry. And I was like, whoa. At first I was like, whoa, those are harsh words. And I looked at it, I was like, you know what, you're right. And I said, you know, and again, this comes to how are you going to deal with it? And in that specific case, I actually met for coffee with her and we had a great conversation. And I think at points, especially if you're in a position of privilege because of how you look, you just sometimes need to sit back and you need to listen and you need to learn, and she was in that case, she was very appreciative of the fact that, the show was even, this conference was even willing to learn about it and willing to make changes. And so I think that we need to really, what happens next and how are we going to change?
Yeah, those are a good points. When the person called me out on LinkedIn on this, I was very defensive personally because I put a lot of work in that piece of art, not anything else. I'm like, this is a good ad. It's my best ad yet. Nothing else. Like, I got to pull this. I'm always a little defensive. Like, what did I do wrong? How do I approach this stuff? And I get approached once in a while on this stuff. I get called out, hey, my panel's too wide or this, that. The problem I have, and, I'll say this to anybody, is I run a volunteer organization. So I'm constantly emailing a whole bunch of people. Are you up for this month? Are you up for that? And they're volunteering all their time. I have very little control over who's available on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. this day. So, but having said that, anybody who calls out to me, I say, if you know anybody, if you recommend anybody who's a good speaker or good whatever, I'll add them to my Rolodex. And the more a variety I have, the less chance of this happening, and the more this will go out. But it's all about creating that network and building that. And so when people reach out to me, I'm saying, please, yes, I understand that in this particular situation, but if you recommend anybody, you have anybody, and anybody's watching this, please send me people, because if they've got value to add and they can help my startups, I want to talk to them. That's the bottom line.
I was actually going to point out the irony of us having this conversation like 4 white people in this. I was just going to point it out there, not to call you out, but I was just going to point it out that it's good we're having the conversation, but it was just interesting to me.
50% of panels women, so we got something right.
And again, normally I would have this with our leadership team, and we have somebody's LGBT and a few other people there, and it just gives me a different perspective, because I'm heads down doing this, and every once in a while someone says, this was wrong. And that's great, because that's what we need. And I think, especially as entrepreneurs, in your big company, there's always policies and procedures, and someone's thought about all this stuff, and you've got a marketing people who have standards and brands, and that's great. I don't have any of that. I've got a membership to Elements stock video thing. I download some stuff, put some graphics together, push it out the door, and hopefully people will click on it. But yeah, I need to make sure people understand how inclusive we are. If you come to our events in Toronto, you would understand that I'm the minority. If you've been to my live events, really, like, we get people first week, first month, first day in the country. Allah, who's on our leadership team, he came in from Syria, and his first month he joined our group and started and just volunteering and whatnot. But it is because and I don't think about it too much, because I'm in front of these people all the time. It's different now behind the screen. And the pictures and advertising I used to do, I do from our live events. I have pictures because we were there and people and live and get that feeling. So it's different now. And I think we are removed from society, and it's harder for me to keep that in mind because I'm not in front of the same people. I'm looking at Doug on the screen, not the 70 people in my audience. Does that make sense?
Hey, you can't win them all. We do our best. And,
no, but I think we're more isolated now. And I think, whatever privileges or bubbles we live in have been magnified by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I think the key is about how you handle the feedback. Always being open to the critical feedback, and not just being open to it, but responding. Here's how this is what I'm doing about it. This is what I've done about it. Rather than just talking.
Yeah, I have to respond better. My response was not necessarily the best. I think it was, hey, if you want to, I could use all the help I could get. If you want to, volunteer, we're a volunteer group. If you want to help me, and, that could be just me running this stuff by you and you giving your thumbs up or thumbs down. I don't care. Like, if you want to be part of this board, that's great. So I have to definitely be better at that. Because if it's an individual reaching out, they don't know me very well, and they're not necessarily going to respond to that well. With my leadership team, they know me, and they know that how to react and whatever. And so it's different. And I think it's harder to keep that in mind. I really appreciate you guys taking the time tonight. Some delicate and interesting conversations. Any parting words for the audience, and where can they find out more about you, Candace?
So you can find us at songbird.marketing.com. Happy to chat about pretty much anything. As you can see, I am very animated. We're actually going to be having a contest coming up on Instagram next week. So be sure to give us a follow there so you can enter that.
And your Instagram account is?
Songbird_MC, and I'm going to put that link right in the chat.
Thank you. Daniela?
Yeah, so my parting words are, in a world where you can be anything, please be kind, because I feel like in this time, we need kindness more than anything to everyone, everywhere. I've had some pretty terrible experiences since the pandemic has hit. And so I always remind people that it doesn't cost you anything to be kind. And I think it's really important. Where you can find us is bookandbrunch.com. We have a bunch of amazing virtual events. If you know anybody who loves to read, please send them our way. Reading is also a great way to get through quarantine times, to learn, to grow, and to escape or be inspired. So Book and Brunch, check us out.
Excellent.
And Doug?
Yeah, firstly, Candace, Danielle, Craig, all fantastic. Great points brought up tonight. Yeah, we'll have to connect afterwards for sure. We're airo.life, airo.life. Again, launching the Be Free enabled devices, essentially saving families $50 to $200 a month, giving brands the highest visibility in the world on our devices. Excited to be launching in the US Q3 this year. So if anyone wants to reach out, they're more than welcome on all our channels, LinkedIn, Instagram. We have people monitoring 24/7. And yeah, look forward to the future, and look forward to seeing more with TorontoStarts and initiatives by Candace and Danielle with their respective companies as well. Yeah.
Thanks again for taking the time to have the discussion. Thank you, everyone in the chat room and live on YouTube. Appreciate you taking your time out of the evening and watching tonight, and we'll see you all again soon.